I would love to invite you, if you feel willing, to turn on your videos. If you want to see me speaking while I'm speaking, you can go up to the top and change your view to speaker view. We are going to today, after a brief introduction here, we are going to break out into small groups and have conversations with one another about a number of topics related to burnout. So I hope you're prepared to chat with your peers and those on the phone today, and to share your experiences. And we won't put a lot of pressure on you to share back out. We've got that kind of well curated, so you don't need to feel like you're going to have to share back out to the broader group if you don't want to. But if you want to, you'll have the opportunity to. Um, I want to thank some of the women on the Women in ITE committee that have helped pull this together, and you'll see them featured a bit here today. Along with me here is Alina Chang. Also, Sarah Templeton is on. Carrie Falkenrath is on as well. And we're also missing, I believe, Jody Godfrey and Maggie McNamara. Hopefully they'll be able to join us shortly. So I want to talk some about my personal experience with burnout. I came to recognize that I was extremely burnt out in the winter of 2022. I wanted to quit my job. I wanted to quit the profession. And I love my job. And so I knew there was something that wasn't right. I wasn't unhappy with management. I wasn't unhappy with the projects I was doing. I was just fried and over it. And once I recognized it was burnout, I started to think about what actions I could take to improve it. You know, the same projects still had to get done. I'm a mother of two, and my children's lives, still had to happen. Our family life still had to happen. I couldn't just let my house fall into disarray. I couldn't disappoint clients or my partners here in the office. And I made the decision to start taking little teeny tiny steps to improve every day. And so the first thing I did is I quit working after my kids went to bed. So that was something that I had occasionally done pre-COVID, and during COVID became a bad habit, an everyday habit. So I would start my day early in the morning. I would take a break around dinner time, kids home from school. And then after the kids went to bed, I would hop back online. I was always exhausted. I was never unplugged. And it helped actually. Not working after the kids went to bed, as just the small change that it was, helped a little bit. Sometimes it meant I was waking up before the kids went to school or before they woke up to work. But what I found was that by giving myself that relaxation time at the end of the day, and then in the morning, if I wake up earlier, I could work out, I could, relax. I had the options to do a variety of things that I didn't necessarily have the same options at 9 and 10 p.m. So that was step one for me. And after that, I don't know, there wasn't a science to it. Every 4 to 6 weeks, when I settled into a new routine, I picked something else. So, I said, okay, now I'm going to say no to this thing. As, being on a committee, I'm going to say no to a committee. I'm going to say no to an event. I'm going to say no a little more. I really love to say yes. So that was hard for me. But that was definitely another step for me. I learned to put up my out of office in a different way, to be clear in my out of office, and to give myself, I'm actually about to go on PTO, and I'm giving myself, I shouldn't even tell y'all, I'm giving myself an extra day at the end. I'm going to be back at the office for a day, and my out of office is still going to be up, which will allow me to just start refreshed instead of starting back from vacation feeling behind. Making these changes required a lot of good communication. You can't just quit doing the thing that you were doing and expect nobody to notice. So I told people readily, I'm a sharer. I know a lot of faces on here. So if you know me, you know I'm a sharer. And so I told people what I was doing. My team that I don't know if y'all had this, but during COVID, my team worked all sorts of random hours and I supported them in doing that. So my late night crew, I said, hey, I'm not going to be online to answer your questions at 10 p.m. anymore. Um, you can send those earlier if there's a real emergency. Of course, I'm here, but most everything can wait until the morning. And so, if you run into a snag and have a question, sounds like it's a good time for you to log off too. Um, it took a while to make those adjustments, but eventually, probably in the summer of 2022, I realized that I had made a dent the in the burnout. I was feeling happier in my job. I was feeling less behind. I hit moments where I definitely feel behind for a while, and I just learned a new normal. And what I've learned as well is that for me, it's something that I constantly have to work at. It's like exercising or something that, you can't just do it for a little bit and then quit. You kind of have to consistently do it. And so I know when there are periods that it will become challenging for me again, and I try to pay attention to those. Oftentimes it has to do with around conferences or around PTO. And I keep an eye on that and I make sure to communicate well when I'm feeling behind. Hey, I might be saying no more over the next few weeks so that I can get caught up again. Um, for me, overcoming burnout was not about self-care. I'm not like getting massages and facials and pedicures. That was not the strategy. It has been at times focusing on spending time working out, to get those good endorphins going. Again, it's different for everyone, and I think that's why having this conversation today is so important and why we're here. And so, want to make sure I hit my notes. I think I hit my notes. What we're going to do, I am seriously, when you go into the breakouts, please, please, please turn on your videos, see each other's faces. We're going to do a series of 6 different breakouts. They're going to be 8 minutes each. Stephen is going to send you the question when you're in the breakout. He's going to broadcast it. So you don't need to memorize it. We're trying to make this easy for you. You will spend those 8 minutes in groups of 3 or 4 having a conversation about the topic, all related to burnout. And then we'll come back as a group. We'll kind of refocus as a group and we'll send you back. We'll have just a couple minutes in between each. And then at the end, we'll have about 15, 20 minutes to talk as a group and we will open up the chat. The chat is open the whole time, but we'll open up the chat. We will allow you to come off mute if you want to. And if you don't feel so inclined to come off mute, or put something in the chat, Alina and Sarah and Carrie are gonna help me keep this conversation going. If you have any questions, let's put them in the chat real quick, just to make sure I didn't miss something that somebody is confused by. And while we're waiting on that, I'm going to tell you the first question. So the first question is, what strategies have you found effective in recognizing and addressing burnout in your personal and professional life? Stephen's going to put it in the chat, so you'll see it. And I'm not seeing any questions come in. So Stephen, with that, I think we're 2 minutes early, but that's okay. Let's get people kicked into the groups. It does take a minute if you haven't done this before. Here everybody comes, re-entering the conversation. Welcome back. Stephen, 55 back in the room. Is that just about everyone?
Yes, all breakout rooms closed. And just so everyone knows, when you see that countdown, you don't have to immediately come back. That is the 8 minutes. You can wait till it kicks you back into the room. So you don't have to actually come back early.
Awesome. Alina, do you want to tell us something that you heard or learned in your conversation?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we were sharing about ways that we try to recognize burnout, and some of them are emotional when you feel like you have a little bit of a shorter fuse, or you feel like you're reacting to someone who normally wouldn't trigger you. You might need to take a breath, take a pause, and okay, maybe it's internal. Maybe you're feeling a little overwhelmed, a little burnt out, and need to take a bit of a pause. And some steps. to help address burnout, like you mentioned, trying not to work, after your kids have gone to bed, turning off your phone and notifications on the weekends so that you're not checking or thinking about work, and just letting it simmer until Monday if it's not something that's super urgent. And actually taking a lunch break, rather than just scarfing down a sandwich in 5 or 10 minutes in between meetings. Actually take a break, go do something else. Don't try to pack it with other meetings that you couldn't fit in during the other hours of your workday.
I love that. Thank you. Alina watched me eat my soup as I prepared for this call. So I am guilty of working through lunch today. Um, can y'all raise your hands if you were able to see the question that Stephen sent out? Stephen, it didn't work. I'm sorry, I lied to y'all.
I broadcast it to the room. Maybe I did it a little early, but let's put it in the chat. If you can, go down to the bottom and click on more and open up the chat window, and I'll put it both places this time for us.
Thank you. So the second question, and you're going to go to different folks every time. It's random, so there could be some overlap, but it should be a different group every time. The question now is, how do you maintain motivation and passion for your work while combating burnout? So that's the question we'll be going to now for the next 8 minutes or so, and enjoy your conversations with some different folks. Hello, hello again, everybody. I know some of us, I think folks are still coming back in. Some of us maybe got kicked to the same group, but that's just fine. I think those were great conversations to continue. Let me ask Sarah, are you ready to share something that you learned?
Yeah, my group had great input. They came up actually with three really great things. One person had shared that they have the opportunity to be a little selective in what they work on. So it's helpful for them to balance their time with kind of like the have do's and then the projects that they like to do, so that way they're not getting overwhelmed with a lot of things that they don't necessarily enjoy doing, but they like to kind of be a little selective in what projects they're taking on. That way they're filling half their time with things that they enjoy doing. Another person kept a to-do list and just kind of broke down their tasks in the day to little things. That way you feel accomplished when you're checking more things off in your day. So you just feel like you're just being just very effective with your time. And then the last one, I feel exactly the same way, that you just, whenever you feel really overwhelmed, going back to why you're doing what you're doing and just remembering that like you got involved because you want to help your community and you want to do good things for people. And so in those moments when you're like, ugh, it's just, I have no time, you just remember that there's people out there that you're helping and that need you to kind of keep going. So they had a lot of great ideas.
I appreciate that so much. I was not prepared for you to be like, oh, we made a whole list and ready to share out. That was so great. Awesome. Did everyone see, just a few hands, the question come through that Stephen sent that time? Awesome. Thank you. Okay. So the next question is, how can professionals effectively communicate their boundaries and limitations to colleagues and supervisors? So how can you communicate boundaries and limitations to your colleagues and supervisors? Welcome back as you come back. We're waiting on, I think, just a few more. Lovely. Sarah, if you want to get ready to share your screen. We are going to do this break just a tiny bit different. Sarah is going to share a question on Slido. So Slido is kind of like Menti if you are not familiar. So it should pop up. There it goes. If you go to slido.com, and I'm looking at my Google map or Google. So you can scan the QR code, or you can go to slido.com and type in 2190-2748 and answer this question, and we'll give it about 60 to 90 seconds to let everyone kind of
Beth,
get
I'll
through
also
here.
note, if you scroll to the top of the chat, the link is the first thing in the chat too. So you can just click that link for the Slido. That's another option.
I don't know if it'll, I'm going to recopy it, because if people joined after, I'm not sure if they see it, but here it comes again. And I got to answer it myself, so
Yeah.
I'm going to do that.
I was talking and responded and I forgot what I put for myself. I should know my own answer, shouldn't I?
Unless it's constantly changing, Carrie.
It is. I was just going to say it changes by the day. So
I think it is constantly changing. And well, I think we have the order. It seems to be settling. A lot of us feel like we are getting by. I'm really glad to see that 28% say they're well balanced. More 23% and 13% are struggling or feeling totally burned out. My hope for today is that if you are in any of those categories, especially getting by, struggling, or totally burned out, that, you know, everything you hear is not going to be applicable to you. We are all different people with different situations, but I hope at least you get one thing out of this that you're able to take back and apply to your life, and maybe bump you up at least one category to something one vote higher, and hopefully with time we'll all get a little closer to the top. No one said perfectly balanced, which I understand and I very much empathize with in today's world. All right, are we ready for the next question? I think so. Question 4 is, what are some proactive steps we can take to prevent burnout before it escalates? We had actually kind of talked about this in my group a little bit ago, but I think it's a good time to expand on it. So what are the proactive steps we can take to prevent burnout before it escalates? See y'all in a little bit. Hello, hello. Everyone's popping back in. I love to see the smiling faces. All right. We are going to kick it to Carrie, who's going to tell us something that was discussed in her group.
my group had a lot of great ideas. One of the best ones I heard was, says it's so hard sometimes that you'll like mull on your work all night long. So one person in our group does like a checklist at the end of the day of what they accomplished and what they need to do the next day, and like write it on paper and leave it there. Like leave it on your desk and leave it at work, and then you've gotten it out of your brain and you don't need to chew all night on what do I need to do tomorrow, you know, what needs to be done. And I thought that was great. Just the act of getting it out of here and onto paper and trying to leave it behind. The other thing our group talked about was just having things away from work, having things to look forward to. You know, interacting with art was a good one, whether it's making art or seeing art. We also talked about doing fun things for yourself in bite-sized pieces so that you don't create more stress for yourself by taking on a big project, starting a big book. I said I love to read, but I don't start books because then they just hang over me. Because you know, you either have to find the time to read or you make the time to read and then you're up way too late or something like that. So, you know, only starting a bigger thing when you know you have the time to do it, to just save yourself some stress from trying to create less stress.
Hi, Carrie.
Hi,
Haven't seen you in a
Allison.
while.
I know.
And I'm gonna I was late and I'm gonna leave. I love that y'all talking about art because I was actually admiring Beth's art during the session and that. But I have to run, so I just want to say hi and thank y'all. And if I can join back, I will.
Thanks, Allison.
Sounds good.
All right. Carrie, are you a vacation reader then?
I am a vacation reader. That's another thing we talked about was I'm a vacation planner. And it was funny because another person in our group was like, I hate to plan vacations. I was like, oh my gosh, I live to plan them. I think I enjoy planning them more than sometimes I wonder if I enjoy planning more than going, which can't be true. But
Can't be
But
true.
yeah,
Not at
I
all.
use them as my mental breaks, though. I was saying, like, if I've planned the trip, then if I just need a mental break, I will pull open like pictures of the condo that we're staying in and flip through them for 5 minutes and be like, okay, like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. So, but things like that.
I love that.
So,
I love that so much. And there's a lot of activity in the chat about audiobooks right now. So really, really appreciate that.
now I gotta look.
Let's go to the next breakout, which now we're kind of moving from our personal space and self into kind of what organizations can do. So how can organizations, whether that's your company or your agency, better support employees in preventing and overcoming burnout? Hello, hello. I see everybody rejoining. Thank you so much. I am going to kick it back to Alina to share from your group.
Yeah, you bet. We heard a lot of talk about vacation and annual leaves and to make use of all the time that your employer is giving you. And also not to do leave shaming. So when you have a colleague that is taking time off, don't make them feel bad about it. It's there for a reason. You are supposed to take that time off. And if they are going somewhere amazing, that's great. You should celebrate that. And then plan a vacation for yourself. I think other things that organizations can do is have like kind of internal awareness training or classes on like mental health or self-care. And being able to recognize when folks are feeling stressed and how to help deal with that, and have like employee assistance programs where folks, if there's like counseling or things like that that are covered by your employer, that folks can make use of when they do need to talk to someone, and not have to kind of struggle with it on their own. Um, yeah, so those are some of the things that we were sharing.
Awesome. Parts of that were definitely things that we discussed in my room as well. So thank you so much. Sounds like we had some great conversations. Our very last breakout, and then please don't decide to jump after, because we're going to bring it back and have a group conversation. But our very last breakout question is here. What are the long-term consequences of unchecked burnout in the lives of professionals? So what are the long-term consequences of unchecked burnout? Well, welcome back, everyone. I hope y'all had good conversations. We certainly did in my group. Sarah, if you want to get ready to share again, the first thing we are going to do is go back to the Slido. And I see that I need to move it over here, so I'm ready. As you're answering the Slido, the other thing that you can do is think about if you want to present a question in the chat and we'll do open discussion, or if you want to think about if you want to have something ready to raise your hand and unmute. But first, we're going to make a word cloud, I believe, on this one. What does your organization do to prevent or overcome burnout? Sarah, I'm looking for you. I think we can put in more than one word. Is that right? Yeah, okay. I'm typing myself, so give everyone a minute. All right. People are still populating a little bit, but flexible schedules absolutely seems to be the biggest thing, with remote work being second. I love some of these around the edges. I'm checking dogs at work. Very cool. I hope they aren't too barky. Grace on life, wellness checks, mountain biking. Would love to hear more about that and how your organization pulls that in. Good coffee, huge. We recently added, I have local coffee delivered to the office here because people didn't want the bulk coffee, and I do think people are happy about it. Walking Wednesdays, very cool. Brain breaks. Trying to see if there's anything else. Mandatory checking, I'm curious what that means, if someone feels inclined to enter in the chat. Accomplishments and recognition just popped up. Team building events. In one of our conversations, I was talking about culture, and I think that, you know, happy hour is not culture. It drives me crazy when you're interviewing candidates and somebody says, you know, what's your culture like? And you say, oh, we do happy hours, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, no, no. Like, that's one piece of the culture, but that's not your culture. And you know, team building events are a piece of the culture. They're not the culture. I think all of these things together build a culture. And, you know, this, if you combined all these together, hopefully that would be an environment that is supportive of people struggling with burnout. So, okay, I'm reading this, Karen. Thank you. Our HR requires mandatory monthly check-ins between staff and managers. Thank you. What do we think, Sarah? Are we ready for the next one? Oh, one person's still typing. Maybe we give it just 1 second. See. I didn't see something change, but I might have missed it. All right, let's go to the next one. Okay, what is your biggest one-word takeaway from today? Why did we write this? I want to write like 4 words. You can do it. I love that that no spaces. Alignment, self-care, commonality. It's a good word. That's probably the word I was looking for and didn't find. Not alone, self-advocate, communication, empathy, timeline, solidarity, boundaries, big in the middle. I didn't even say that one yet. Yes. Boundaries are tough, and evolving, I think, is the thing that's important to remember. Not the end of the world. Love that. Not alone got a little bigger. Say no. I have a very hard time saying no. I really like to say yes. All right. Sarah, that was our last Slido question. Yes, thank you so much. I want to read these questions, and then I would like to invite people to come off mute if you feel inclined. With our group of about, what are we at now? 43. I think that it doesn't feel too risky that we're all going to be talking over one another. So if you don't want to put something in the chat, you don't have to. You can either raise your hand and I'll try to call on you, or you can come off mute. I know there's a number of people on the call that don't have access to come off mute. So if that is you, certainly feel free to put things in the chat. And Alina and Sarah and hopefully Carrie and I will keep our eye on that and make sure we're not missing anything. I'm going to start with the 2 questions that Carly posed here. and I haven't read these in advance, so I apologize. I feel a need to work extra hard as a woman in engineering to make the same progress as my male coworkers. How can I balance this with actively avoiding burnout? That is a great question. Um, I don't have an immediate answer. Carrie, what do you think? I'm going to call on you and while we wait and see if anybody else has something.
Yeah, I know. That's a great question. Um, I think one thing, and I love that the word solidarity popped up. I mean, this is going to be easier to say than to do, but I think we have to realize that we don't have to work twice as hard, and we need to, it's stress on you, obviously, but try try to tell you, and I know it sounds terrible that it's easier said to say than do. Try to tell yourself that you're putting that stress on you. Um, that you don't have to work twice as hard. Our industry, actually, transportation is very female heavy now, whether we see it or not. So if you don't see it, you will find a manager higher up in the company and talk to them about it. Even if they're not in transportation, a lot of companies are multidisciplinary. But try to get that stress off your shoulders, because I think as women, we are putting that stress on ourselves. And I am more than anyone guilty of it, but I keep trying to tell myself I don't need to be.
Thanks, Carrie. Anna Maria, I see your hand is raised.
Yeah, I actually, this is like, I definitely suffer from imposter syndrome and like let it come in a lot more frequently than I wish it would. So I've now developed in my office what I like to call my anti-imposter syndrome wall. So it's like just different accolades and different things that, like, when I'm having a really rough day and I'm like, I'm never gonna get this right, I'll like look over and be like, someone somewhere saw me get it right and acknowledge that I got it right. And I'm just gonna continue doing that. And so like having a visual for me, because I'm very visually like oriented, bringing myself out of that place of like feeling like the world is on my shoulders and I'm the only one who can do it. That's been like that anti-imposter syndrome that I like constantly, because imposter syndrome is just yourself. No one's doing that to me. I'm doing it all to myself. And my boss tells me all the time, he's like, you are your worst critic. I need you to stop. And I'm like, okay. Anti-imposter
Yes,
syndrome wall.
I love that so much. Related to if we're talking about progress, the one thing I'd add is advocates are so amazing. Having somebody that's going to go to bat for you and also then going to bat for someone else is really how I think people advance in the workplace. It's saying somebody saying your name in a room or you saying someone else's name in a room when they're not there is so important. So if you have the opportunity to do that, do that. If you are looking for somebody to do that, there's no harm in asking someone to be a mentor. Um, it might be a little scary to say that, and most people I think love to be mentors. Um, we are shorter on time than I thought. It is 2:29 already. Um, I think I want to talk about this last question for just 1 minute and then we'll wrap up. How do you recognize that your job is actually the problem and not you when it comes to burnout? I think that's a difficult thing to answer, and I invite somebody else to jump into, but going back to the very beginning, when I said I wanted to leave the profession, I didn't hate my job. I was like, well, I don't want to work for any of my competitors. I don't want to go work for a city or for Tennessee DOT. If I was going to leave, I just would leave the profession altogether. And that to me was like, oh, it's not my job. My job's not the problem. It's burnout. Um, Somebody else's example might be different.
I think I faced this at one point too, and I had been a consultant for 18, I don't know how many years, just under 20. And I realized that I was really unhappy, and I started looking around at other jobs because I thought I just don't want to do this anymore. And I went down the path of interviewing for several options, with on the owner's side and on the public agency side, and all different places. And in the end, I became a consultant in a different way. So it's when I realized it was my job, the job I was in, not the profession that I was in, but the specific job that I was in. So I think letting yourself go down those paths, about what your alternatives are, and far down, those paths, it kind of gives you a hint of maybe what it is that's going to make you happy again, because really that's what you need to find.
Absolutely. We are over, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Thank you, Carly, for those thoughtful questions. I also, because Carrie was jumping in with me there, I want to give a pitch to the workshop that Carrie and I are doing. At the ITE annual meeting in Philadelphia. If you would like to join us to continue this conversation, we are going to be talking about burnout at the personal level, burnout at the kind of corporate organizational level, and then burnout at the societal level. So thank you. Take these conversations back to your offices, talk to your friends and partners about them. If you want to message me, I would be glad to chat about burnout anytime.